to talk to Mike Petraglia, but he probably got pulled into a press conference.
It's always like I was just in a press conference and I was hanging out with Joe Burrow, and then he wanted me to go hang out with him and talk to him about some life situations, so I had to. So we were underneath the goalpost in Cincinnati, just rapping about some things. I saw your text, Dibs, and I just couldn't. I just couldn't say no to Joe Burrow to sit down and eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with him in the back of the end zone in Cincinnati. So I'm sorry and I apologize.
Well, and Zach Taylor is pretty open with the media in Cincinnati, and they do a great job. So we'll talk to him. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. It's not just Bengals.
I want to know about Belichick.
Well, you got Joey Votto. You got the Cubs job that just opened up, and then you got Xavier, and how good are they going to be this year? So there's a lot of things we're going to touch on with Petraglia. But let's talk Yankees. Just saw this article. I think some of it is old news because I've already read some of the comments from Hal Steinbrenner. And how little changes they're going to make. Not shocked that they got rid of Sean Casey. I thought that was more of a PR move. This team's got issues. And now with their bench coach moving over, Mendoza moving over to the Mets, they're going to need a new bench coach. You're going to need a new hitting coach. But Hal Steinbrenner tried to backtrack on the analytics department, and something that's been very visible for the last few years is the mediocrity of this team. They were 29th in batting average with a 229 overall team batting average. They're terrible with runners in scoring position, one of the worst in baseball. I'm sure they were one of the worst with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. And a lot of that is just common sense stuff. A lot of that is just putting the ball in play and not taking these full swings. Domingo Germán is not coming back. We told you that at the end of the show yesterday. So Hal Steinbrenner's point to the media was, we're going to make these small adjustments, not even moves. We're not going to fire people. We're not going to place blame. And I'm not a big blame person. This is the direction you wanted to go in, while still spending $283 million last year, which was top 5 in spending in Major League Baseball, and getting nothing for it, being basically 82-80 mediocre. And so if you want to keep being mediocre, he came out and part of the story on ESPN.com, it's an AP story that says, I talked to players, which is smart, and I talked to former players of the Yankees on whether or not Aaron Boone should stay. Now, no owner's going to come out and say, well, you know what, our manager's kind of a dumbass, makes stupid moves all the time, but we're still going to keep him. No, he comes out and he says he's brilliant, he's so smart, all of this stuff. One thing I like about Aaron Boone is he's a likable guy, and he's always been that way. Would I say he's exceptionally smart? He's not Buck Showalter. He's not Joe Madden. I'll tell you that right now. Dusty Baker and Bruce Bochy are old school guys, and they manage men. I think Aaron Boone is an apologist for the mistakes that the front office makes, and that's why you're keeping him. Plus, you owe him 3 more years contract. But to come out and make it seem like this isn't an analytics-driven organization is embarrassing. You do it in the minor leagues. You do it at the major league level. Everything you do is analytically driven. You have 30-plus people in your analytics department. I want to know if you fired anybody from that department or have in the last 5 years, because your team, like many other Major League Baseball teams, have been ruined by people that don't know baseball, that just know numbers.
Well, his comment on the analytics regarding Boone, and this is kind of precious. This is what Steinbrenner said. One of the misconceptions that's out there, because I hear it from a lot of people, is that Boone makes every decision in the dugout during the game based on analytics. That's just not true. Analytics gives Boone and the coaches a lot of information. So do the pro scouts. It's up to Boone during the game when he puts the lineup together and everything after. When he wants to do with all that information is on him. Honestly, if you ask the analysts, they'll probably say that too many times Boone makes a decision during the game that's based on his experience, what he's seeing, and his intuition. Oh, so there you go, Dibs. It's his intuition that sucks.
First of all, and the Yankees are not the only organization. In the last 9 innings or 12 innings, most games suck.
Someone has to suck.
How he does the bullpen. But here's the thing. Here's what the analytics does do. It scripts the game for you. So but you've been told to put your best hitter second, which is fine, but you can't put a crappy on-base percentage guy in front. We've already talked about Schwarber and this with the Phillies, and it did kill them eventually in the postseason, where it was all or nothing with Schwarber. And, yeah, he did have 5 home runs, but he had 5 RBI, and he wasn't doing anything with that power, and it wasn't helping the guys behind him see better pitches. And Turner and all the other guys in Games 6 and 7 of the NLCS, I think they were 1 for 29 for the, the 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in your lineup. That's what I talk about. So the analytics and some of the moves that they make or do or don't make out of the bullpen, pulling your starters way too early most of the time because analytics has said, well, you can stave off it. You can't stave off injuries. You can never control them. I don't care. I've been around this watching this league. Guys are going to get injured depending on what their bodies can take. And so saying they can or cannot take 20 more pitches is insane. There's no analytics chart that can tell me that that's going to save these guys' arms. It never has. It never will. And you can see with the data of the kids, like 12 to 18, Tommy John is up 400%. So that's all the data I need to know that, okay, these kids are specializing way too early in life. So that now they've been throwing year-round. You're going to get to the major leagues, and you're not going to throw these guys. He had a proven track record of throwing every day. And it's not max effort throwing. It is just the throwing motion. And I think that a lot of the analytics are based on guys, they don't know squat about baseball, but they know numbers. And they know that the second time or third time through a lineup, this A, B, and C is going to happen. And we're going to script a game according to that. You can't always script every game because every game has a different issue in the middle of the game.
Well, that's what I always complain with UConn football offense. And you always say, man, how are they so good in the first drive? Like, first 2 drives, their offense is clicking. And I'm like, yeah, because it's scripted. Like, they have worked on these 10, 20 plays over and over and over again against the defense they're going to see. And the problem is adjustments. The problem is once they see your stuff and they adjust, what are you doing to counter-adjust? And that happens in every sport. And when I watch the New York Yankees, really, it's not necessarily the adjustments of what the other team's doing. I think it's more of an attitude thing because this has been going on for some years now. They have had teams. Heck, before they had hit 62 home runs in one season. That would.
And you did win 99 games with that guy.
Right, I know, but it's where they finish in this past year.
But how do you go from 99 to 82? Who is responsible for that? And obviously, there's a lot of injuries, but. And Rendon, you couldn't foresee that happening. But a lot of the moves you made during the season and stayed with, including Volpe, and listen.
I'm sure those were scripted based upon an analytic situation.
Because you're like, listen, we're going to stay with this guy no matter what he does. Well, that's kind of like cutting off your nose to spite your face. You sometimes have to maneuver your team around its capabilities. And some of the things that they didn't have, the constant of Aaron Judge in the lineup, the 50 games he missed, you have to make adjustments. Giancarlo Stanton in his diminished capacity. Donaldson you got rid of. You got rid of Aaron Hicks during the regular season. A lot of that stuff. Okay, you can't control some of that stuff and the lack thereof of their ability, but you had already accounted for it in the analytics department. So you scripted these guys and keeping them in the lineup. I would have dumped Stanton being in the lineup 3 months into the season.
Well, the thing that I look at with my untrained eye, and I said this when they hired Boone in this room to you, you're hiring a substitute teacher. You're hiring the quote-unquote player's coach. You're hiring the best friend of the roster. Yeah. Not the coach, not somebody that's going to tell them the hard truths. Somebody that, of course they all said they love Boone when they're batting that's 200, right, and this guy's not going to complain about it. This guy's not going to call me out in the media. Of course we want substitute teacher back.
And who did you get rid of? You got rid of Sean Casey because he's the truth teller. Yeah, Sean Casey, who's a lifetime 300 hitter and was one of the best hitters I've ever watched, especially with runners in scoring position and with 2 strikes. He probably was trying to tell these guys, hey, listen, you've got to change your approach. Common sense stuff, real simple stuff. I don't want to hear that. The last guy, Dylan Lawson, never said that to me, right. And it was okay that I was hitting 200 with him. Well, he got fired. So to get to the point here, you fired the one new voice that you brought in because the voice told the truth.
Sean Casey.
All of these other guys are sugarcoaters, and they're great at sugarcoating. And that's why Brian Cashman, from Brian Cashman down to the analytics, down to Aaron Boone, that's why they still have their jobs. And so, and the giant sugarcoater is Hal Steinbrenner. When he said, "Why are the fans so angry in May?" That's when I knew this owner is not George Steinbrenner, and really not even the offspring thereof, because you'd still be ticked off that you're losing and losing badly, and it's embarrassing to the fan base. If you don't understand your fan base, you shouldn't be running the team.
Really, that's why I'm so giddy about Counsell being a Cubs coach. I'm a Cubs fan, and you've always asked me, like, for years, like, why don't you like David Ross, man? He was a Cub when the world's... Because he's a pushover. He is the friend of all the roster. He is a substitute teacher. I was so happy in the middle of the season that I saw the merit of Dansby Swanson and the leadership that he provides. He is that coach on the field that accepts nothing less than what your best and what you're paid for. I think Cody Bellinger was a lot better with having Dansby on the field. Getting rid of David Ross got rid of the substitute teacher, and there's no playing around now. It's the real coach is coming in, and he's not going to accept a dropped ball in right field that cost you a playoff spot to a team that eventually went to the World Series, Seiya Suzuki. But you were, like, the time I was proud of David Ross was the time he chewed out Javier Baez for not knowing that there was only 2 outs.
Right.
And like, dude, and look, now he went to the Tigers or the Mets.
Horrible.
The Tigers still doing the same crap. And
just, by the way, opting into his $94 million left on his 4 years with the Tigers.
Right.
Because he ain't getting that anywhere else.
And he's not getting any better.
Last year,
he's not getting any better
games.
with that kind of coaching. And that's what's going to happen to Volpe. That's what's going to happen to Stanton. That's what's going to happen to all these Yankees that are just cool with 220. Just cool with winning 90 games and not making the playoffs. Just cool with striking out 3 out of 4 times in their at-bats on the day.
And getting a home run maybe the other time. That's not going to win you a lot of games. But individually, if you hit 35 home runs a year, you're going to get paid a lot of money.
Especially if the guy who's my coach will never call me out, and the media will never know, and I can hide in this batting 200 averageness, and everyone's cool with it. And I'm still going to get paid and, go about my day.
I think you have a lot of guys, once you put on those Yankee pinstripes, where 30, even 20 years ago, it meant something. Now it means something different. Now I'm being branded a Yankee, and there's dollars that are going to roll in, and the dollars are going to be what shoes I wear, what glove I play with, what kind of local car ads I can get into and involved with my agent, more so than the product on the field. And that's where you had 4 championships in 6 years back in the late 90s with the New York Yankees. A lot of good to above average guys, not great, not Hall of Famers. They don't have a lot of Hall of Famers that came off of those teams. The ones that they did anchored shortstop, anchored the end of the game. Guys like that, like Mo Rivera, Derek Jeter, guys like that. But the Jorge Posadas, the Bernie Williams, the Brociouses, the O'Neills, the guys that helped with those 4 championships weren't all spectacular. Brocious would hit 220 in the regular season, and he hit 320 in the postseason. And he played Gold Glove baseball. That's what wins you championships. So they don't have a lot of heart, is what I'm saying. They have a lot of business people.
Yep.
They have a lot of country club people.
Yep.
But that's where it has changed. You had blue-collar guys under Joe Torre. Joe Torre was a no-nonsense guy. I'll never forget.
Throw Girardi in there, too.
Yeah, Girardi was the same way. They were check your ego at the door. Here's the thing. Aaron Boone allows all of those giant egos to come through that door.
Substitute teacher.
Absolutely. Good call.
I got one more. This is just great in this article. I just read this. So there are some changes coming to the Yankees. Steinbrenner has made a big hire. At the recommendation of assistant GM Michael Fishman, New York has hired Zealous Analytics for a year-long review of its practices. The firm is headed up by Doug Fearing, who has a PhD from MIT. This guy knows baseball.
He knows how it's built. He knows it's round. But he even knows how many stitches are on a baseball.
He was a part of the Los Angeles Dodgers research and development department, so this is going to fix everything.
Oh, yeah.
There you go, Yankees fans. You should be happy.
All right, we'll try to catch up with Mike Petraglia next hour. All right, first dibs question of the day, sponsored by Tire Depot, coming up next.